What's up guys, welcome to new Unreal Engine 5 tutorial. Today we are going to recreate the Batman grappling mechanic. It's going to be a very easy video to follow, so let's get started. Alright, so I'm here in a brand new third person template. And the first thing that we want to do is make sure that when we left click or whatever button you want, it will display here a trace where we can detect any surface that we want to grab into. So in the content browser, let's double click into the third person folder, input, actions, and right over here, let's right click and go into input, action. Let's rename this to IA underscore and then something as grapple. So we are going to go ahead and create the input action for grappling. Now with that new input action created, we don't need to even open this, we can simply go and open up the IMC. This is the collection where we store all of the inputs. So let's add this new input, which is grapple. And if we expand this input, we can click this over here. And if we press any key on our keyboard, for example, the left mouse button, we can go ahead and assign this. We can also manually search it if you want. Save, close, and there we go, we're good to go. So in third person, let's open up blueprints and open up the third person capture blueprint. Now in the Venn graph, let's scroll down, right click and add the IA underscore grapple, expand, and boom, we are here on started. So for example, if I was to put in a print string over here, when I press the left mouse button, as you can see at the top left of the screen, I'm printing hello. So everything's working fine. So now we need to create that trace. A trace is simply like an invisible ray from one point to another. So we can simply get it started and do a sphere trace by channel. For the start position, let's simply get the player camera and get the camera location. Now for the end point, let's get the rotation, once again the camera rotation, and then we are going to simply go ahead and get from the rotation the forward vector, so we know at what direction we are looking at. Then let's times this by a value and right click on the spin and click on float. So now this is the distance, how far away we can detect and grapple into surfaces. Let's put in like 3000 just for now, but of course this is a value that you can play around with. Then let's get the location and add this with this new multiplication and put this to be the endpoint. Radius, put in like 25, and then last but not least, the book type to for duration. So now when I press play, as you can see, I am creating this ray which is impacting with surface, as you can see. So for example, if I want to grab into here, I would detect this sphere over here, and this is the location that I would go into. So with that said, let's drag from the return value and add a branch. So we will only continue if we actually hit something. Then let's get the out head and break this. This is a struct with many variables, and this has a lot of the properties about the surface that we have just impacted as the location or impact point. So in this case, we want to make sure that the player travels into that point. Now in Unreal Engine, there's a very easy way to do this. We can simply drag from true and do move component to. And then simply for the component, we can use the capsule component, which is essentially the parent of the whole actor. And then simply we can plug in the impact point as the location. Remember, it has to be impact point, not impact normal. And then for the rotation, well, we're gonna do this in a second, but let's go ahead and just make sure that this time is around like maybe 0.8 or 0.5, whatever, and let's force the shortest rotation path so it's just smooth. And as you can see, I can go ahead and travel into the grappling points, which is pretty cool. So everything's working. Now just make sure that you of course have the distance from the camera in the desired location, otherwise you might accidentally grapple into things closer to the camera instead of far away, if that makes sense, right? So you need to play around with the radius of these things and all that stuff. But anyway, so now we are going ahead and going into the location that we want, but we want to actually do one thing, which is to only be able to grapple into certain surfaces to make things more fun, because otherwise imagine I could just grapple to everything, and maybe for your level that's okay, but I want to only be able to grapple into specific objects. So in the content browser, let's right click and create a new blueprint class and create an actor. This will be BP and then something as, you know, can grab or grabbable or whatever you want. In this case, it's like surface. And then let's go ahead and add a sphere, and this is gonna be just a simple sphere. And let's put the lock, make it like 2 times bigger, put it somewhat here. And then last but not least, let's go ahead and change this to be the blue color of this over here, which is solid blue. So we can click on this icon here and then click on this one to apply, and then go back, select content, and there we go. We have this new part over here. Of course, right now when I click on it, nothing happens because, as you can see, the camera is colliding with the floor here, if that makes sense. So what we need to do is make sure that we can only detect this collision, not anything else in the level. So for this, go up into Edit, Project Settings, Collision, and create a new trace channel. And let's go ahead and put the name as, you know, Grapple, and then the default will be Ignore. Accept, close, and then surface. If we click on this, we can scroll down, and in collision presets, set this to custom, and then set everything to ignore, except 2 things, which is visibility and grapple. Compile and save. And now back in the third person capture blueprint, we can set the sphere trace by channel to use the new trace channel. Now the things that doesn't appear, so we just need to compile, and now we can select grapple, compile, save, and as you can see now I cannot grapple into anything else, just the sphere, which is really cool. And everything is working just fine. As you can see, I can go ahead and grapple into the sphere, which is amazing. So let's go ahead and make sure that we can go ahead and connect a cable from our hand into the destination, which will be like an, you know, like an actual hook or whatever you want to call it. So let's go into here and add a new component, which will be something as cable, and this will be like the hook. Let's go ahead and drag this inside of the mesh, so it's a child, and then with this as a child, we can search for hand. It will be the right hand, so hand R. Then click on these 2 icons to reset it into the location, and then we can simply put the end location to be 0. And here it is. Now the number of segments, put it to 2, and then click on a save. So now in the event graph, what we can do is, once we want to move into a location, right before we do the movement, we can simply get the hook and say attach end to component. And the component will simply be this hit component. And now, as you can see, we have a hook that goes into position, as you can see. It's a bit hard to see right now because we need to move our camera a bit to the right. So on the camera boom, let's put in around 25 and 25 on this axis. As you can see now, we can see a bit better. And there we go, we have this really cool kind of cable. It's a bit broken, but don't worry because it will only appear for a couple of milliseconds almost, or just 1 second while we are flying. So it will be, you know, looking much better a bit later on. Now let's go ahead and also change the material. We can put in like arrow material, for example, and now we have this really cool cable going on. So now it is time to go ahead and implement like a little animation, right? So everything looks good because right now, of course, it's looking a bit too, you know, just boring, let's say, right? We also need to disable the cable and all that stuff. So first of all, yeah, let's do that, which is to disable the rest of the cable. So what we can do is just copy this 2 nodes, paste it here, and on completed, just leave component disabled. And now, as you can see, yeah, it unplugs, as you can see. So back into our project, let's go to Window and open Fab. Now on here, let's search for Ramster. And you can see that we have the Ramster Z free animation spec. Click on Add to Project. And in a couple of seconds, it will be imported, which you can close. And now we have a new folder. So in here, let's search for choke. And we have this paired choke attacant animation. We want this one. So let's right click and click on retry animations. It's simply the first one if you take a look. Now The target skeleton will be many simple, and now we need to search it once again, which is this one, the first one. Export animation, it'll be on content, export, and that's it. So what we did was basically convert the animation from the old Unreal Engine 4 mannequin to the Unreal Engine 5 skeleton. So now we can use it. So if we double click on this, we need to kind of make it a bit faster. So let's go ahead and put in the pin around here, so at 11. Right click and remove frame 0 to 11. It starts right away. And then we can go ahead and end it right over here. Right click and then remove from frame 93 to 170. And there we go, we have kind of a hook animation for our upper body. So now it is time to create a new variable over here, and let's call this is grappling or something like that. So basically, when we are enabling our cable and all that stuff, we'll drag this and say set grappling to true, and then at the end we will set grappling to false. And there we go. So we have a variable that will tell us if we are grappling or not. And this will help us now play the state of our animation for grappling and all that stuff. Now make sure that this is ticked, and this is unticked, of course. And of course, by default, this will be unticked too. So in our content browser, open up folders of many. And in the many animation blueprint, we can go into the name graph, which is where we have all the states. So if we double click on main states, we can right click and add a new state, and this will be grappling. So this is essentially the new state where we will play the grappling animation. Let's put this around here so it's easier to see. And we'll transition from locomotion to grappling. Okay, and then from grappling to land. So it's a nice animation. We could even do it to locomotion if you want first, as it's easier, but it is the same idea. We're getting back into the locomotion state at the end of the day. It doesn't matter if you do it from here, but you know what I'm saying. So let's create a new variable, which will be something as is grappling, and double click the transition from locomotion to grappling, and you simply plug this. So this is true, it will go here. Now for the return transition, let's double click, drag again grappling, but add a not boolean, which will mean that it's the opposite if it's not grappling at this moment. Now we need to do the same for falling and jumping, so drag from here to grappling, and then from jump to grappling. And in both of this, let's simply drag is grappling, and on here to is grappling. So we can grapple if we are jumping or falling at the same time, which is important. Now let's double click on grappling and let's find our choke animation, which first of all let's rename to grappling. So let's go ahead and just name this to grappling, and now we can search for grappling, connect this here, and boom, there we go. Now, of course, nothing happens because we're not telling this variable to be enabled, therefore we're not telling this to, you know, to transition to this one. So on the event graph, let's go ahead and add a new pin and set is grappling. Connect this over here, put this around here. Double click to make a reroute node and put it here. And now over here, let's copy get owning actor and do a cast to third person character. And we're doing this in the begin play to have a reference to our third person character to actor that you know, that variable. Right click, promote to variable. This will be character BP. Let's expand this, and then what we can do is get character BP. Right click and convert to validate get. So we only continue if this is true, and then we can get the is grappling animation or boolean in this case and plug it in. And now this will work. If I go from here, as you can see, we are playing that grappling animation, then we stop playing it. So everything is working. Now you may notice that our rotation is actually working pretty good. This is because our character will always try to align the, you know, destination. But there's actually a better way that we can do this, which is to do a find look at rotation. The start point will be, well, the get actor location, and the target point will be, of course, the impact point. And now, as you can see, we go a bit faster, which is a bit nicer. But anyway, this is just a little detail. Let's also just set this debug type to none. It's a bit better to see. And there we go. We are getting this really cool kind of grapple mechanic. Now let's make sure that the animation is a bit more in sync with our cable, because we start throwing the cable and grappling and moving all at the same time, where we should first of all, you know, kind of put in the hook in our surface and then go and so on. So basically, after we grapple, let's make a sequence, okay? And the first sequence will be just moving into the component, and the second sequence will be to activate our cable, okay? So for our first sequence, let's put in a delay of 0.2, and then for our cable sequence, let's put in a duration of 0.15. Okay, now you will notice that it will look a bit nicer, just 10 times better, because as you can see, the animation lets the cable kind of go into the position first. Now let's also, on top of this, make sure that the cable is only visible when we are grappling. So let's get hook and we set visibility, and of course in here we would turn to true. But when we finish grappling, we want to set this to false. And then of course by default, let's select the hook, go to visibility and disable this. And now, as you can see, we only see the hook when we are actually grappling, which is cool. Now you could do the other way around, which is to always have it like physically on the character. That's actually very cool, but it's just easier to make it look good if it only activates when we need it, if that makes sense. Cool, so we have all that system going on. We can go ahead and grapple, and then that's it. We can even try this with multiple levels. We could create a whole game here if we were like Batman going up into the things, you know what I'm saying? We can do it with any surface, which is cool. Well, any surface that has our collision trace, right? But now it is time to make sure that we can specify a specific kind of widget where we can kind of aim into, right? Because right now for the player, it's a bit hard to aim. I mean, it's kind of easy, not gonna lie, but it's just a nice player feedback if we put like a little icon where we can, you know, go ahead and move around. So what we're going to do is actually display like a little like floating mini sphere which is glowing, so we can know that we need to press the left mouse button to grapple and all that stuff. So in our third person character blueprint, let's open this up and let's simply go and add an event tick. Okay, so an event tick happens every single frame. And I'm gonna go ahead and copy the same sphere trace by channel and also these two other nodes, okay? So right now, every frame we're doing the same kind of trace calculation, as you might remember. But the difference with this one is that first of all, the radius is going to be a bit smaller. And on top of that, we are going to use this simply to display this little sphere, okay, nothing else. So in the true, let's do a create component by class, which is add. And then it will be a static mesh component. Okay, so we will spawn a static mesh component. Now let's right click and promote this to a variable, which will be the hook display. And then we are also gonna set this static mesh, right, of this display to be a sphere. There are many types of sphere. We can use, for example, this one, doesn't really matter. And then we can get also the hook display and set the material to something. What? Well, there's a couple of things that we could use. Let's, for example, create our own material, right? So we could do simply like the hook, and let's go ahead and just hold the 3 and press the left mouse button. So now we get this color. Let's put this to be like yellow, and let's get the output of this and multiply this by, for example, 2, and plug this into the emissive so it glows a bit. Now over here we can assign that material by clicking this icon here, and there we go. Now of course we do this, and it's just on our on our player. We need to make sure that this is on the destination. So for this, what we need to do is first of all only do this like once, because imagine we would be creating a new static mesh component every frame. That would be crazy. And then we also want to go ahead and update it when we are not creating it for the same first time. So for display, let's get it and right click, convert to validate get. So if we are not already with a hook display, we'll create a new one. But if we are, it will simply update it. So we can simply say set world location, and this would mean that the world location will be the impact point, and that's it. So the first time it will create it once, and then it will simply adjust it where we want. Now this is quite big, so let's go ahead and make sure to change the size. So once again over here, let's get the hook display after the material and set the relative scale 3D, which is essentially just the scale, to be around like 0.4, 0.5, 0.3, like whatever you want. I think like 0.25 is a good number, I think. But you know, it's just playing around to see what you get. There we go. We got real cool stuff. Now you can see that it kind of bugs out when it's out of the detection, and it kind of flows. And then also when we are grappling, is still there. We don't want to have it anymore when we are grappling. So there's a few things that we can do to change this. What we can simply do is make sure that it will not create a new grappling display if we are grappling. So what we can do is get the is grappling and do a not boolean. Okay, so we will only continue if we are not grappling. And the same for the world location update. Control move this here. This will be in true. So we will only continue if we are actually doing this like you know, and not grappling. Now in the case that we don't detect anything, what we need to do is get the hook display and do a destroy component. So plug this to here, and the same with here. Okay, so false would also go here. Now we will only do this, of course, if the hook is enabled. So let's do is valid, right? If exists. And now, as you can see, when we grapple, it disappears, and also when we look at any other point, it disappears. Now you see that for a second it appears in our character's body. This is simply like because of the missing color. Unreal Engine takes a bit of time to calculate like the difference. I mean, if you see, if we disable the missing color, maybe it does appear for a split second, but yeah, it does. As you can see, like it takes like a frame to move it into the next location, you know what I'm saying? So there's a few things that we could do, but what I'm going to do simply is just plug this here, and we can make a simple like, you know, delay. So over here, what we're going to do is simply go right after we set the scale to beat this one, and simply get the hook display and set the visibility to be disabled. But then after like a little delay of, you know, 0.2 seconds or whatever, we copy paste this and put this to be true. And now, as you can see, that effect is away. Maybe even we could put in like 0.05, I'm gonna lie. Let's see. Yeah, and there we go. It appears perfectly fine. We could even move a bit the thing a bit to the more to the right, so even like 35 or something, so it's easier, yeah, to see. Now you can see that we got an error the previous time. That's because after the delay, imagine that we don't have the hook display. So let's just make sure to convert this into a validated get to only continue if it's valid. Now we wouldn't have that issue. Okay, as you can see. So cool, we have this effect going on, which is really cool. But we can improve something in our animation real quick, which is the feet. As you can see, the legs and the feet and everything just kind of, you know, I mean, it's okay, but it could be a bit better because they're kind of like very still, you know, and if you are flying away, you should be like moved a bit more. So let's go ahead and open up the AVP Mani, and let's open up the main state and the grappling state. And what we are going to do is split the body in two. So we can use this layered blend per bone node, and simply with Control move this to the bottom one over here. And then we can get the other part, which is the fall loop, drag it and put it here, and then also select this fall loop and enable loop animation. So this node allows us to split the body in two, as I mentioned, and the base body will be fall loop, but the upper body will be playing the grappling animation. So if we select this bone or this node, we can specify what bone we want to split the body into. So let's put like spine 0.1, and then let's put in a blend depth of like 2, and then enable mesh space rotation blend. Okay, So as you can see from the spine one, we will split body to play the hook, and then the fall animation, and it will just look real good. So as you can see, now our feet actually, like, you know what I'm saying, like they move a bit and it looks like way nicer, as you can see. Let's do one little thing, which is also to make sure that our player cannot grapple 2 times. So we will only be able to enable the input of grappling if we are not currently grappling, if that makes sense, because if you spam the left mouse button, you might get a bit buggy. So let's go ahead and just make sure that you can only grapple if you are not already grappling. And that's it. We got a really cool widget indicator over here, which of course you can change and customize as you want. It could be another image, it could be another 3D object, it could be another material, whatever you want. And then simply, you know, move the character with a nice animation and go there, just like in Batman. Of course, there's many things that you can improve. You can add some audio, you can add some camera shake. I mean, there's crazy things that we could do to improve it, okay? I'm gonna leave it simple just for the purpose of the tutorial, just to get the base mechanic in, but you can go ahead and add camera shake and sounds, which will just improve things so much. But that's it, guys. If you found this video helpful, I would really appreciate it. You can like the video and subscribe to my channel. Remember that you can join my Patreon club, where you can go ahead and get access to the private files of this tutorial and just download the whole thing. And now, yes, with all said, bye bye.